Fantastic. You sure they didn't put that this was a bingo thing? Bingo always gets a lot of... Anyway, my name is David Greenstein, and I am very pleased to be here. I love cruising. Now, I saw before that somebody here before, when the cruise critics said that this is their first time. Is this anybody's first trip to the Caribbean? How many of you have been here before? Wow. Well, I know what brought you back. And for the people who haven't been here, this is their first time, you'll find out why these other people continue to come back. It's a wonderful place. It really is. A great environment when there aren't hurricanes, but we don't have to worry about that because we're outside of the hurricane season right now. Puerto Rico stands for rich port in Spanish. And the port of call we're going to be at is San Juan. This is the Puerto Rican flag. It was first flown in 1895, and the representation was freedom from Spanish rule. Now, I like to read flags, and the white star there represents the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. The three sides of the triangle are for the three parts of the government. Red, of course, that stands for the blood that has been spilled in defense of the country for all time. And the white, that stands for the purity. That stands for very positive things. I want to give you a little of the early modern history. 1493, Columbus came by on his second voyage to the New World, and he named it San Juan Bautista, after John the Baptist. Now, at that time, there were something like 50,000 Taino Indians on the island. They're also known as Arawaks. It's sort of interchangeable. They came and they met Columbus. These were friendly people. They were not warriors. They were friendly people. They came and they met him and they welcomed him. Location, location, location. We know about that, how important that is. The Spanish came in 1493, and for the most part, they were in charge of Spain. They were really doing a lot to get areas in the Caribbean. Why? Because it was a very perfect place for protecting the colonies and for shipping. In the late 17th century, what they were looking for was more land and more riches. And they saw Puerto Rico as a base to expand their empire in the Caribbean. Now, they also started showing interest in some of the other areas in the south and north. They started showing interest in Cuba and the other larger islands. In the late 19th century, U.S. wanted Caribbean. They wanted a naval station there because they knew that a canal was going to be built either in Honduras, Nicaragua, or Panama. No, I'm not going to ask where it was built. We know where it was built. Offered Spain $160 million. Sounds like a good sum back then. No, bap, wrong answer. They didn't take it. But, as with anything, things change, times change, and needs change. Spanish-American War, January in 1898. What happened then was the USS Maine, which was in Havana Harbor, mysteriously exploded. Now, you know who was in charge of Havana at the time. That was Spain. The United States was not happy with Spain at that time, but on April 21st of that year, the U.S. set up a blockade of Cuba. 1946, American President Harry Truman put in Jesus T. Pinheiro as the governor. He appointed him. The first thing Pinheiro did was he signed the Ley de Mordaza. Now, that was a gag law that had been approved by the legislature of Puerto Rico. Now, under that law, it was illegal to display the Puerto Rican flag, illegal to sing patriotic songs, illegal to talk about independence, and very illegal, if there can be such a thing as very illegal, to fight for independence. October 30th, 1950, the people were not happy. And a faction in the country started a revolt. The revolt was simultaneous in several cities. The main city was Hayuya. And what happened was they started revolting against the government in power at the time. The United States obviously heard about this real quick, within hours. They called out the National Guard. Now, one little problem that I see, at least, the National Guard, they were Puerto Ricans. You ended up having brothers fighting brothers, families fighting families. Well, that wasn't the end of it by a long shot. The United States sent in ground troops. The United States had ships offshore and sent in bombers. I want to get to a really positive note, and this time I need your help. I need your help. I'm going to show you some pictures of people that I say prides of Puerto Rico and of Puerto Rican heritage. Now, I'll give you about 2 or 3 seconds. If you recognize the picture, just yell it out. Here we go. Ready. Some prides of Puerto Rico and Puerto Rican heritage. I heard Jennifer Lopez. You got it. Rita Moreno. Very good. 2 in a row. Rita Moreno. Eric Estrada. Anyway, what about today? What's Puerto Rico doing today? The economics. 1950 was a period of very rapid industrialization. A big transformation from an agricultural-based economy to manufacturing. And, no surprise, major tourist destination. Here's one of the really big draws of the island, and that are the waters. This is a reef under the water there, and that's a diver. If you're a certified scuba diver, you know how beautiful it is. It's like swimming in a tropical aquarium. Tourism brings in about $2 billion annually to the island. Beaches, scuba diving, snorkeling, you name it, it is wonderful. Here's the capital. Anybody know who the head of state of Puerto Rico is? Barack Obama, President of the United States. The government is a formal Republican system, legislative, executive, and judicial. In June 2011, there was an interesting motion made by Cuba in the United Nations, and they were asking for a resolution that the United States expedite a process granting the island self-determination and independence. Now, my question is, and I'm not clear, it's to expedite a process. I didn't know that there was any process in the works to do that already. In fact, there have been many surveys taken on the island, and the people have each time voted that they want to maintain the status quo where they are. They don't want to be a state, and they don't want to be independent. What do you got to do there? Rainforest, a lush mountain rainforest, very pristine, very well maintained. They have a real respect for it, plus the people love it. That's why the people come in there. 100 billion plus gallons of water yearly fall in that area, and that's why it is so lush. Massive plants. If you go there, it is at least a half-day trip. Snorkeling, it's wonderful. It's like being in a tropical fish aquarium with the colors. But let me give you David's survival hint for snorkeling and being on the beach. We're close to the equator, and that means you can become a crispy critter real quick if you don't have a high number sunblock. Trust me, like I say, I lived in the Caribbean for 10 years. I've seen it happen. If you don't have some on you and you're going to spend more than 10 or 15 minutes laying on a beach or snorkeling, get down to the ship store and get a high number sunblock. Okay, I want to take a swim now and go over to look at the U.S. Virgin Islands. Our port of call is St. Thomas. The history here is very similar to that of the other islands. The main islands we're working with are St. Croix, St. John, St. Thomas, and some smaller ones. The total land mass is about 135 square miles. I hope nobody here, well, I don't remember it, but I know what it was. The sinking of the Lusitania. That started the Great War. Today, we call it World War I. And the reason for that is, before the Great War, there had never been another war that involved so much of the world. And it was not until the Second World War came that they started saying, well, that was the First World War. Anyway, U.S. was worried that the Germans were going to come in and use the area as a submarine base, so they made an offer to Denmark that it couldn't refuse. That was $25 million. Very high literacy rate, 90 to 95%, and that is one of the highest in the Caribbean, I can tell you that. If I get to do my one on Haiti, you'll see the difference. And as of 2010, this is interesting, the birth rate is 40% higher than the death rate. And you might be surprised to know that across the board, the Caribbean has a greater longevity than a lot of other places. Of course, with this kind of comparison between the birth rate and the death rate, it's not going to be long before there's a lot of people there. I want to tell you about a hero of the Virgin Islands. David Hamilton Jackson. Now, this was before they became U.S. Since 1779, the government did not allow, that's the Danish government, did not allow the publication of any free newspapers. Everything was the government voice. That was it. And the people didn't like that. So Jackson ended up going over to Denmark and lobbying the king to change the law. He actually got it changed. Now, something very special. How many of you have heard of the Tuskegee Airmen? Got a few hands over here. More hands. You didn't hear about it from them, did you? No. Okay. Let me tell you about this. During World War II, the United States military was highly, highly segregated. Blacks had a hard way to go. They served with an incredible amount of distinction and received a lot of awards. There were ultimately about 1,000 black pilots. They went out on 15,000 sorties. Sorties are where you go out to fight and hopefully you come back. 260 enemy aircraft destroyed, 150 flying crosses, more than 7,000 air medals and clusters. In 2007, President Bush presented gold medals to the Tuskegee Airmen who were still alive. This is the highest civilian award the United States can give, and that's what it is. They were authorized by Congress in 2006 and presented in 2007. Now, what about the economy? This will not surprise you. Primary tourism, absolutely. Brings in about 2 million people a year, and most of those people, again, like you and I, on cruise ships. Anyway, I don't have any more time now. I appreciate you having given me your time. At the end of my last presentation, I am going to have a drawing, as I say, for you putting up with me. I hope you'll attend. You have to be there to get some of the goodies. And just get out there, stay safe, enjoy yourself, and accept my thanks.